Happy Wednesday, everybody. It's Jim and it's Amadeus, and we are here to serve soccer, afternoon baseball, all kinds of crazy stuff going on. We're a day away from the NBA Finals. And oh, by the way, Amadeus, the NBA Final of the East, which was Boston and Miami, uh, I just got the ratings was the highest on cable basketball game ever, with 11.9 million people watching Game 7 of the Heat and the Celtics. I have a feeling that the way Game 6 ended, which if anybody missed it, you can find it on TV, on YouTube. It was a phenomenal ending where Boston gets the basket with 0.02 seconds on the clock. So 0.2 of a second, they get a putback and they win the game. So it was wild. So 11.9, which is a monster of a rating. It was the number one show on cable television on Monday night. So good on those two. I'm sure that TNT is really happy because the finals are on ABC and ESPN, and the dog is there, not on their step on that. They've got the hockey though, so they're going to have their own problem. But who knew? It was Boston and Miami sets a record on Monday night. In fairness, there wasn't much going on Monday night, so if you were a sports fan, that was a good night for you. Today's a good day if you like soccer because there's only 20, 25 games on you can watch today.
Yeah, you got every single MLS game playing later tonight. So I hope you got your 14 screens up and ready to go because you're definitely going to need them if you feel like catching. Yeah, Apple TV, get your 14 screens. Hopefully they don't count those as extra screens. I know mine don't when I watch a few different games on the computer and the TV. I guess because it's all the same account, but I don't know how the Apple TV works. I don't have it, but it's get your MLS in. It's MLS season now. We're actually like almost halfway through the season, but all the European leagues are over, so we don't pay attention to MLS until this time of year.
No, you're talking about Europa is playing today too?
Yeah, so today is the Europa League conference, or sorry, not the conference, the Europa League final. And it's weird because then you have next week the Europa League conference final.
Okay.
The Europa Conference League final and the Champions League final are both next week, I believe. So next Wednesday is the Conference League. I think that's the 7th. And then the Champions League finals on the 10th, which I believe is the Saturday.
Yeah.
But I don't know why they put the Europa League one, which is kind of the in-between league too, because it goes Champions League, Europa League, and the Conference League. So you kind of have the middle league going this week, and then the cream of the crop and the kind of newborn, just in its second year Conference League going next week. So I didn't understand the scheduling behind that, but we get a big game this week, so I'm not going to complain about that. It's Sevilla versus Roma, and it's definitely going to be an interesting game because this is a repeat of the 2019 or 2020. I forget exactly which year it was, but it was the Europa League final in 2019 and 2020 or 2020. I forget which year exactly, but yes, Sevilla and Roma. So these teams are meeting up once again. Sevilla, it's interesting because Sevilla, they hired a new manager this year, so they don't have the same manager. But if you look at the squad is pretty much the same as it was when they beat Roma in that final a few years ago. But the difference is a lot of those players that were starters are older and play from the bench now, where they've kind of revamped their starting lineup.
Right.
So you still have those players with that experience of the win over Roma, but they're not all of them are starters. So, it's still a new manager, obviously. So different Sevilla team. And this Roma team is nothing the same as it was 2 years ago, right? Back then, they had Mkhitaryan and Ed Dzeko still playing for them. Now Mkhitaryan's on Inter, and Dzeko obviously had his move to Inter as well. And they picked up Paulo Dybala, and they completely revamped their team in the offseason as well. So definitely a new Roma team that Sevilla is not going to be familiar with from that match. And obviously their manager Jose Mourinho, he won the Conference League last year, the Conference League final with this Roma team, even though they made some changes in the offseason. Really, in the summer they improved the team, so they were better this year. But yeah, they have the experience. Jose Mourinho, you can say what you want about him, but he's a very decorated guy, and especially in these big single leg final matches on a neutral site, his strategy really comes into play because he's not about going out there to win the match. He's all about not losing the match. And, in a match like this where it doesn't matter as long as you come away, it doesn't matter if you win it 20-19 in penalties, as long as you find a way to grind it out. That's the kind of match you want Mourinho in. And obviously he won the Conference League last year, so he's fresh off one of these UEFA tournament wins. So they're going to be, and this is, keep in mind, this is their only ticket back into Champions League, because as it looks right now, the top 4 is sealed in Italy going into the final match day. So yes, the only way you will see Roma in Champions League next year is if they win this match.
Well, it's the old, what you got to do to get there, right? So win it and you're in. So it's cliche, but it's actually true in many cases in sports. You control your own destiny. And, at the end of the day, I suppose, that's what we all want, right? If it's in our own hands, whether we screw up or whether we, advance, you can't ask for anyone.
Yep, it's all in their own hands. They have the experience, and they actually opened up as a slight underdog. It was about plus 160 for Sevilla and plus 180 for Roma, and now it's moved to the point where it's plus 180 for both.
Go ahead. Go.
Oh no, I was just going to say. So the Roma line hasn't moved, but they've kind of adjusted the Sevilla to match.
Right. I had a Twitter question from yesterday to ask you, so I'm going to ask you that now. And that is, this is someone who is brand new to the gaming industry, and they said, "What are units?" Okay, and why? How do they work? So, there you go.
So a unit. Yeah, a unit is basically, it's just your betting amount.
Right.
And the reason why we use units is because it's universal. Not every site grades the same way. The site I'm on, BigAl.com and PickAdvisor.com, they grade unit size by the $1,000. $1,000 is a unit size. So when you win just a generic, minus 110, you're up $1,000. But other sites, I believe Picks and Parlays is one where they go by the $100 as a unit size. So, plus 30, my plus 30,000 Premier League record would be plus 3,000 at a site like Picks and Parlays. But at the end of the day, you can always say it's 30 units, because no matter what, the unit is what your average betting, well, not really average, it's what your betting amount is, and realistically it should never change.
So
pick a unit size and stick to it. If whether it's $10 or $100, you bet that amount on every single game, and that way you don't find yourself chasing in certain situations where you double down and things like that.
Right. So it's a budget.
Yeah, it's a way to manage your bankroll, right? You pick a unit size and you stick to it, but the actual term of the unit, we use it because it's universal, and it takes away, it doesn't matter if one site's unit size is 10 grand and another site's is $100. At the end of the day, 30K profit and 3K profit is all going to equal 30 units in the end, because it goes by that was the size of the betting amount.
So that's the theory of the case on that.
So, So units, like I said, it's a universal way to do it, but yeah, your unit size you should pick and stick to it.
And so it's your budget to begin with, saying I'm going to only spend $10 per bet, right? And then it's how you're judged when you win or lose.
Yeah. So the general exception in the industry, or what people tend to accept, is your bankroll should be, your unit size should be 10% of your bankroll. So if you deposit $100, you start yourself off with $100. You pick $10 as your unit size, and you place $10 on every bet you make, and even if you continue to profit, and let's say you grow your bankroll from $100 to $1,000, okay, that's when maybe you can take a step back and say, all right, we've done good. We've grown it. We've grown it by $900. So let's up the unit size to $100 now. That would be 10%. But yeah, it's basically that's what's generally accepted in the industry. Your unit size is 10% of your bankroll. But at the end of the day, if you're a big bettor and you start yourself off with $1,000 or a couple grand in your thing, I recommend you pick your unit size and you stick to it, whether it's $100 or $1,000 per thing. You should always just stick to your unit size, especially when you get into larger amounts. Like if you grow your bankroll to 50,000, you shouldn't be okay, I'm going to wager $5,000 on every game now. No, maybe just stick to $1,000 at that point, because obviously it's been what's working, right? Like with smaller amounts, it's okay to up it if you're new and you start yourself off at $10, and then eventually you work your way up to 1,000 and things like that. But yeah, and a lot of the time it doesn't even have to be 10%. Another thing is it should just be something you're comfortable betting. It should be an amount where you look at it and go, if I lose this bet, I'm not going to throw my TV at the wall,
right? Because
I needed that money. You're just going to say, okay, on to the next bet. Let's try and get it back.
Or importantly, you're not betting the rent money on this game.
Yeah, I know people that do that. So.
Not a wise choice.
Yeah, definitely not my recommendation. But.
Yeah, I don't know Webster's dictionary definition for gambling, but it isn't necessarily winning all the time. So unless you follow, of course, Amadeus, but I don't want to put that much pressure on him. But yeah, I mean it's very interesting, how now the 28 states in the United States have become an area where you can wager. There's so many people, getting into the pool, and there are terms that are used that they don't know. And there's terms like, we'll get questions like, well, how come there's not, how come it's like a plus 150 and a minus 120? What does that even mean? And so you get those kind of questions. You get the questions on the units and all of that. What's the money line? What versus, point spread, all that other sort of nuance, which in the gaming industry is almost like you're speaking a different language. And sometimes people get, especially all the new folks, get a little confused when they're, when they look at it and try to figure out what it is.
Yep, definitely. There's a lot of complex language in the industry, and it's always good to know what you're betting on. Don't just obviously blindly tail. I've had a lot of people just tail blindly and ask me, "Oh, wait, what's a DNB?" And then I say it's a draw no bet, and they still go, "What's a draw no bet?" And it just means you're turning, because soccer's a 3-way money line sport. Versus a 2-way money line sport. And the only difference obviously is the draw in more traditional North American sports. games end in draws all the time, but you don't realize it because they play overtime here. They don't have overtime in soccer. It's just 90 minutes and it ends in draw. So the draw no bet is basically taking away that three-way money line and saying, okay, I'm either picking this team or this team, and if it draws, I get my money back.
And for the record, I don't think they ever should have taken that out of hockey.
Yeah, actually, I know a lot of Canadians that are pissed off about that. They thought it was a better game with the draws in there.
Yeah, I mean, you get the draw point anyway. So why are you playing? For that, you're playing for an extra point.
And a lot of the time, you see that, right? Like teams will lose in a shootout and they don't even care because they're leaving the game thinking, "Well, we got a point out of it."
Yeah. Well, there's not that. There was also a number of occasions over the years that guys get hurt in that 4-on-4 extra session you're playing, even though it is only 5 minutes. It's still a time when you can get hurt.
And you know what? Actually, another thing to think about with the hockey thing is the way they're doing the points is actually wrong when you think about it, because now you're getting an inconsistent number of points by awarding both teams a draw and then an extra point for the team that wins. So now you're getting 3 points between two teams out of a game that only would have had 2 max if it ended in regulation.
Right.
So there, it's almost like it's beneficial for both teams to go to overtime, whereas in soccer, teams get penalized for drawing because you get 3 points for a win, and if you draw, you only get 1 point, which means both teams got one of the 3 points, and that leaves 1 point on the table that nobody got. Nobody gets the point because you drew. That's what you get. It's almost like punishment. So at the end of the day, I bet if you counted the points of every single team in the NHL for the past 10 years, you would get a different number of points every single time.
Sure. And you get a lot
of that in a lot of leagues too.
You get a lot of teams, especially in hockey, where they're cool with getting grab the point. You'll see, that they're on a winning streak, right? They'll say they're on a winning streak because they're 7-0-4. All right. So they didn't lose necessarily. They might have lost in overtime, but the record shows that it's 7-0-1 or 4. They got the points, so they got points in 11 games.
And another thing with that, I think, which is interesting. So look at the Florida Panthers, for example. Right? They got 93 points. They were the lowest seed in the NHL playoffs this year with 93 points. That got them into the playoffs. There are 82 games in a season. If a team were to go to overtime in every single game, just let's pull the Jose Mourinho and just go for the draw. We're not losing games in Arizona this year. We're not trying to win games, but we're not losing games this year, right? So let's say the Coyotes go to overtime because they're just playing that kind of tight defensive style. They're just trying to grind out points. They now have 82 points from going to overtime in every single game. If they win half of those games, they got 120 points, and they're almost matching Boston for the best team in the league. So, NHL history, like ever. So, my point is, look at what the NHL. I don't think teams have realized that, but if you try to force overtime every single game, you're guaranteed 82 points at the end of the season. Plus, that's assuming you lost every game after the regulation.
Right. So all right. So you said that they had how much? They had 83 points?
93 points.
Okay. 93 points. Hey, Foxy, how you doing? Good to see you. And so let's say they tie every game. They only have to have 10 wins out of the entire season to be ranked in the playoffs.
Yeah. And so that's where, now you really start to see, well, well, maybe you can't give a team each a point and then still give the winning team a point after, because then you like obviously it's never happened. But what if you get that weird team? Even if they go to overtime in 60 games, that's 60 points, and you win half of those. That's an extra 30, and you have yourself a playoff spot right there. And you could have came out of the season with something like 30 wins or less, and you would be a playoff team just because you keep drawing.
Now, when David Poile put together the Vegas Knights, the original, the band that made it to the playoffs or the championship, the Stanley Cup championship, he started by getting Marc-Andre Fleury as his main guy, and they did tie, I think, 15 or 20 games that season because of Marc-Andre Fleury's ability to keep the puck out of the net. So it benefited them, as an expansion team. They didn't have to win as much to get there, but once they got there, they were fine. But that's your point. I mean, the point is you can have a goalkeeper who can keep you in. Some of these fantastic goalkeepers can not just win you games, but they can tie you games, which gets you the point anyway.
Yeah. So I think the NHL is missing. They need either you start awarding teams 3 points for wins, or you take the point away for going to overtime. If you're going to have the overtime, then why does somebody need a point? Why does both teams need a point just for going to overtime? Someone's still going to win the game. Right? Make it more meaningful, the overtime. Then they got to go out there and say, well, we're going to come away with nothing now if we don't go win.
You get zipped. Okay. So Foxy wants to know about French Open tennis. That's a good question, Foxy. I'll tell you what. This is the non Venus and Serena French Open, and I honestly think on the women's side, my gosh, that's way open on that one. What do you think?
Iga's definitely not as dominant as she was last year.
No. And clay changes everybody's game. So
definitely. I saw Bianca Andreescu win yesterday. They were showing her, but the French Open.
To be honest, she wouldn't be a bad fit.
Yeah, it almost seemed like maybe she's finally hungry to win another major after winning her one and hanging up the racket for so long due to knee injuries. But I mean, I've been monitoring the French Open. It's still early though, right? Like we're still in the first rounds where guys blowing out.
We're heading into the fourth day.
See, like these early rounds, what I tend to do is, I'll string together some long parlays and maybe I'll pick some big favorites to sweep 3-0, right? Like nobody should be stealing a set off Djokovic in the first couple rounds and guys like that, right?
Yeah. The thing is, you were talking about the knees and the left. That's if there's one surface that benefits someone who has bad knees, it's clay, because you're not as running as much. And you're actually sliding, so it's not that difficult on your knees like like a grass court would be, or like a composite court. So
it's tough on your ankles though. And we saw
that's true. That's
Zverev last year when he snapped his ankle against Nadal. Yeah. So I wonder what's going through his mind in this tournament, because I wasn't at the French Open that he got himself injured in, or was it a minor clay tournament?
No, it was French Open in like the second round. It wasn't, and it was because what was it? He went for something. He lost his footing. And
I watched it happen. I remember I was watching.
And you know what happened, right?
Yeah, he was playing Nadal, and it was really bad. I knew it when I saw it live. I said, "Oh, this match is over. There's no way he continues after that." I think he just either tore his Achilles or snapped his ankle. And sure enough, it was something very bad like that. It took him a while to rehab that. But
Lost time favorites won big on 3 game parlays with underdogs on the women's side. Total luck.
Yeah, you can find that value now. I read a story of Corey Goff or Coco Goff. I don't know which she prefers anymore. I see both names written, but
I don't know that she does.
one of them. Yeah, I'm really not 100% sure anymore because I've heard people call her Coco Goff and others call her Corey Goff. But anyway, Goff. She said that apparently Jimmy Butler offered her a ticket to the finals to go watch him play before the playoffs even started.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. That just to show you Jimmy Butler's confidence going into the playoffs. Never mind, actually beating the Bucks. This was before they even beat the Bucks. He was offering tickets to Goff for the NBA finals to go watch him. So,
well, he's just hedging his bets, right? Never hurts to ask.
Yep. Oh, and apparently he wouldn't hold the Eastern Conference trophy. He said, "I'll hold the next one."
Well, that's where you start getting a little cocky and go, okay. What is it? There's a jumping back to hockey for just a second. I had heard from some of the players that if they win the President's Cup, they don't touch it. They don't want to because they're afraid that that's that there's some curse on it that's going to get them in trouble. That definitely will get you kicked. There's no way you can win the Stanley Cup if you win and embrace the President's Cup. So it's like, okay, let's put this on a list of of things that I don't understand. And,
so that's definitely a superstition in the sport, and it's big with the Eastern Conference Finals and the Western Conference Finals. The players won't touch that trophy when they win it,
right?
Because it's bad luck for the Stanley Cup. But I'm gonna tell you why the President's Trophy one is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
Mm-hmm.
The President's Trophy winner always loses in the first or second round of the playoffs, and now you're trying to tell me nobody's touching it because they don't want to do bad in the playoffs. Maybe that's the reason why these teams have been doing so bad, because nobody's touching the damn trophy after you win it. Why don't you try touching it the 1 year and see if maybe we get a President's Trophy winner go far? I mean, technically the Florida Panthers were last year's President's Trophy winner. So if you want to count that, they were pretty much the same team minus the Huberdeau Kachuk trade.
Right.
Pretty much the same team there. They just had a bad start to the season, but yeah, now they look like they've won 9 of their last 10 games, and they look like the team that had 100 and whatever points last year, didn't just skirt in with 93.
Right. Well, we'll see how many posers show up. Miami's a great front-running town. They're with you, win or win, not lose. They show.
I know Jimmy Butler's got his Panthers jersey on half the time.
Yeah, good on him. They don't play in the same arena, so they have to go and go across to the swamp just like everybody else.
The thing is, I think the reason why he didn't touch the Eastern Conference Final trophy is actually because of the Florida Panthers. I don't think it's a thing in the NBA, but I think he knows it's a thing in hockey. So he was like, I want the Panthers to win too, so I'm not touching the trophy for them.
Yeah, not helping them. Quick scoreboard this afternoon. We got afternoon baseball. Tigers and the Rangers are tied at 1 in the bottom of the 5th. Bottom of the 2nd. White Sox and Angels. It is the Halos on top, 2-0 on the south side. On the north side of Chicago, it's the Cubbies, who got off to a 1-0 start over the Rays. They beat the Rays 1-0 on Monday night. They beat them 2-1 last night, and they're on the get out of town day. They're leading already at the bottom of the first.
2-0 now.
It's 2-0 now. Obviously, my screen doesn't refresh as fast as yours.
No, it literally just changed in front of my eyes. I use the sports books, so they have to change it right away or they're going to lose.
Fair enough. 3:05 first pitch. The Guardians are facing the Orioles at Camden. And the Athletics are hosting the Braves out on the coast, 3:37. That's first pitch there. The Buccos are on the other side of the coast, over in San Francisco on the west side of the bay, and the Buccos and the Giants. And then at 4:05, you got the Nationals and the Dodgers at Chavez Ravine. So they're playing there. So odd. You got the Cubs and the White Sox in town at the same time, and you got the Giants and the Athletics in town at the same time. Normally, they try to keep one team on the road while the other one's at home. So,
and what's even more odd is the Cubs might deliver the Rays their first sweep of the season.
It's possible. It's possible. And who would have thought it with the Cubs and their very young pitching staff? But
it's interesting because they're actually their offense is a top 10 offense in the MLB right now, and they're like 8 games below 500 or 7. I think 7 or 6 now after those 2 Rays wins. But like it's weird. Like their offense is good. They got guys like Stroman and Steele who have been pitching their tails off.
Right.
And obviously Hendricks in the rotation. Sorry,
they're 6 under 500 at this point.
Okay, so 24 and 30, I think.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. So so it's crazy because they actually have pretty good starting rotation with Stroman, Steele, and now Hendricks getting in there, and then obviously you got a top 10 offense in the MLB. Yet you're sitting 6 games under 500. I guess the bullpen's been a big problem. I remember getting burned on a few of those games where they had a lead and then gave up 8 runs in like the 9th inning. Unbelievable.
Yeah, but they had their problems with the torching of the bullpen.
I thought they were going to be a better team this year. Right now they're in last in the division. Well, I guess them and the Reds are fighting for last,
right.
but like if their offense stays consistent and their 3 starters continue to pitch the way they've been pitching all season, then just they got to fix some bullpen issues, and this could actually be a good team. The Brewers are leading the division, and they're 2 games over 500 after the loss to the Blue Jays yesterday.
Yeah, this is a schizophrenic division. It's gonna be bizarre, and what's gonna happen. I mean, we can see this, from all the way from here right now, and that is that the team that gets streaky toward the end of the season is going to end up winning the division. And that usually is how it works in that division. I don't know why.
It's usually the Cardinals that like to get
Usually the Cardinals win September and end up October in the tournament because they did what they thought they had to do. And you can't argue with success. They get there sometime, somehow, some way. Milwaukee has occasionally, made it. Christian Yelich is in the witness relocation program. I have no idea what he's doing because
in one good season and just like he pulled the Bianca and just hung up the bat and was like, I'm good.
And, well, I got it this time. Thanks very much.
Yeah, we got the one. We're good.
Yeah, we're good. I signed that big paycheck. I'm good. So there you go on that. But yeah. It's
who cares? Who cares? Tom Brady won 7 Super Bowls. As long as I can say I won one, what's the difference?
I'm good.
1-7. I got my one. It's fine.
Right, one will do it. Well, especially with the contract they gave him, so that didn't hurt. No pay issues with him. But yeah, that's the Central's going to be wacky. In
both Centrals.
Yeah, true. You got Cleveland, who you expected more out of. You've got the White Sox, who perennially disappoint.
It's that bullpen. Their pitching is just like terrible year after year now.
Yeah, and then there's the then Tigers. You don't know what the heck that's gonna what they're gonna do. So there's 3 teams right there. Kansas City. You can just you can go to Kauffman Stadium on opening day and walk around with a placard going better, next, wait till next year. So they haven't figured it out. I mean, they have not been able to figure it out since what was it, 2015 that they went to the World Series?
I think it was 2015 rings a bell.
Yeah, I think it was 2015. Anyway, so it's been a while since they've been there. And it's a good baseball town too. So you wonder what the heck's going on in that regard.
But they're like a Marlins. They win their one World Series and then they dismantle the team the next year, and they're like, we're gonna be bad for the next 10 years. Nothing we can do about it. Like, no.
We mortgaged the farm for 1 year, and then there you go. But although in fairness to them, in the 2015 team, just honestly was probably a group of overachievers because they didn't really change much in 2016, but they just didn't play well. And maybe they had we were talking about a hot streak. Maybe they had a hot streak right at the best time they could possibly have had it. And sometimes that works. But the Marlins.
Well, look at the Boston Bruins. The same thing this year, man. They broke records in the regular season. And tell me what changed on the team other than the coach. These are the same 40-year-olds that I've been watching or the same 30-year-olds I've been watching for the last 10 years.
Right.
On the Bruins. I have a friend who's a Bruins fan who was telling me it was all the coach. Nothing changed on the team. It was just Bruce Cassidy was the problem.
Well, okay, that's a fair.
And now he's got Vegas in the finals, so I don't know.
It's. I used to joke that if you need to win and get to the playoffs, hire Bruce Boudreau. If you want to win a title, fire Bruce Boudreau. And I say that as someone who likes Bruce Boudreau very much. You can't help but like Bruce Boudreau. He's a really nice guy and a good coach. But for whatever reason, Bruce can really do a great job in the regular season. It's the postseason that kills Bruce.
And you know what? Those exist too. Look at Andy Reid for so many years. Before he got Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid was known as the best regular season coach in NFL history. Sucked in the playoffs, but was the best regular season guy that you could ever want. Look at that. Now he's got a young stud quarterback, and all of a sudden Andy Reid's just all around great coach. So,
well, I mean, I don't think Andy got stupid. It's just that, your talent is the talent that you have. And sometimes, your teams don't match up well. And
I loved Alex Smith, but he's no Patrick Mahomes.
No, and neither was, people forget that Alex Smith replaced Joe Montana. And so, Alex Smith was a great quarterback at Utah. Did a wonderful job with the Chiefs, but couldn't get him over the hump.
Hey, don't go mentioning Utah, Chip.
I'm sorry, because that's true.
Okay, we don't need to talk about Utah.
We need the BYU and Utah people chasing me again.
We don't need the Utah people coming after us.
Oh wait, I said he was a good quarterback.
They don't even want to hear you. You put Utah's name in your mouth.
in any sentence that I use. So yeah, I think the fun part with Andy was, getting over that hump, and when you get Patrick Mahomes, that doesn't hurt much. That helps you. That helps you accomplish a great deal. And they did a pretty good job of constantly putting themselves in a position to win. So there's that's what you want. You want at least to be put in a position to win. Whatever else happens, it happens. So there's that. Have you? And this is throwing you a total curveball. And if you haven't paid any attention to it, don't worry about it. It's just a question. It looks like the Commanders in Washington will have their sale, and that's pretty much Dan Snyder will be exercised from. I think he's moving to England, so he'll even leave the country.
Wow!
Is when you get an ownership change, does that change the thought in Vegas or wherever on the team that you're about to start handicapping?
That's a really good question. I don't know if it necessarily affects. It really depends on the owner. Like when the Mets got Steve Cohen, the books knew the Mets were going to be good because this is a guy who loved the team. He was passionate about the team. He wanted to see them do well. And obviously, he had very deep pockets and spent that money on the team, right? Not every time you get an owner that's going to come in. And again, like you say, a big reason why these guys buy a team is just ego. So, well, once you have it, you don't want to invest it. It's just a write-off machine for you, basically. And you don't really want to invest money into it. So I think it all depends. Now, like obviously these owners own some other teams that are successful. So that probably will get taken into account a bit. But I don't think it'll be a dramatic change where you're going to see the Commanders, who aren't even going to be the Commanders next year, as the NFL favorite to win the Super Bowl. Right?
No, I wasn't going for that.
And especially in a sport like the NFL where you're dealing with a salary cap, too, that comes into play because, in baseball, obviously, Steve Cohen was willing to blow past the luxury tax like we see Todd Bowley and a bunch of other guys do. But in NFL, you can't really do that. You're handcuffed by the salary cap. And then you end up having to talk to your star players and reworking the back ends of their contracts just to free up money. So again, right, like it's a lot of complication. I don't think this change will, as for this specific change, I don't think it'll affect the Commanders too much unless they start, actually attracting some big names to the team.
Yeah, I think that usually when an ownership change takes place, it takes the owner a year or so to get up to the curve of what you need. And, moving into the, into the general manager and president's offices and getting an idea of what it is that they think needs to be done, or philosophy, if they share the same philosophy that the owner does. How about in the case of a signee like Lamar Jackson? He's now, kumbaya with the Ravens. All is right with the world with him. They brought OBJ in to play on the team with them. Does a new contract help enhance your view of a team?
I see that now. That's one where, again, it depends on the situation. Like when the Arizona Cardinals gave Kyler Murray the massive contract, all I said was that's going to hurt the team because you're giving a baby too much money. And now you have grown men on the team around him who see this guy's not even a first in, first out kind of quarterback, doesn't give a crap about the team or the game. And he's getting paid triple what I'm getting paid, and I'm doing twice the work. Are you kidding me right now? And I'm twice his age. So, yeah, now a player like Lamar Jackson, that might help because obviously he's happy now. He's got, he worked out his issues with the team, and they're at an understanding now that it's time to move forward and win. We're trying to win games, take care of your body because you've been injury prone and things like that. So again, the contract can affect it. Going back to the ownership thing, I'll give you an example. Like the Denver Broncos, obviously, is a great example because I think a lot of it, a hype can play into it because the Broncos, okay, so they were bought by the Walton Penner Group, which is basically Walmart, owns them. And we knew that they were going to have money, obviously, to spend on the team. But it's watching what they do. And right away, they tried to go get a quarterback. They addressed that was the biggest issue of the team. And it did affect the books. The book said, Denver was the Super Bowl team missing a quarterback. Now they got Russell Wilson, right? They're going to be good.
Chris King, when we used to do our show together, when that happened, I said to him, I said, Chris, he said, well, they seem to like him. I said, I don't get it. It's not a fit. It's a terrible fit. I'm not a bookie. I'm not someone or a handicapper or any of this. Okay. I'm someone who has spent my life watching these games because, I'm contractually obligated to do it and hopefully paying attention. And I just this had nothing against Russ. Russell Wilson is a talented athlete. But the fit, the offense, the coaching, everything that you need to win did not fit Russell Wilson. And you looked back up at Seattle, right? And what happens? Geno Smith comes off the bench and takes them, to the playoffs. And so not only do you have Russ in Denver, which is a bad fit, you also have the Chargers with Justin Herbert. You had the Raiders with, number 4. What's his name?
Derek Carr.
Yeah, Derek Carr. Thank you. And of course, Patrick Mahomes. What you're in a division of quarterbacks, and you take this guy and parachute him in, and he's supposed to run the offense. Made no sense to me.
Yeah, and as we saw, everybody hyped them up and expected them to be good, and they weren't. And as you mentioned, that learning curve in the first year, the owners realized, okay, this team's a disaster. This is the wrong coach for this quarterback. Fire everybody and let's restart again.
Push the plunger, poof, and away we go.
And it took them a whole year to see that, okay, it wasn't just we're a quarterback and we're a Super Bowl team. Now we understand what the issues are, and let's actually, fire some people and work on bringing in the right people for the players we have.
And then you look at the Steelers, right? And you look at a team that has 3 coaches since 1969. I mean, you cannot get more stable.
Yep.
They go out, they get Kenny Pickett. Everybody's going, what are you doing? There's other guys, and there may well be other guys who will surpass Kenny Pickett. But for what Pittsburgh wanted, Kenny Pickett was the guy. And, does that mean Kenny Pickett will take him to Super Bowls? Who knows? But it's the Steelers, steady hand on the till as they move along. It proves that, okay, fine. They're never, I guess what I'm saying about the Steelers and teams like them, they're never out of it. They are just constant retooling, but not reactionary. It's not crazy stuff. If they have a problem with an offensive coordinator, they replace the offensive coordinator. What is it, 20 some years now that Mike Tomlin's been the head coach there, I think.
Yeah, I think it's definitely 15 or more. And I think it just goes to show, just like going back to the Geno Smith example, right? That's obviously a good coach with a good system, and it's just next man up, right? And obviously Pete Carroll has that from his days of coaching college, where everything is just next man up.
Right.
So and again, I think that goes to show, just how good and consistent of a coach Mike Tomlin really is. You can hang on to a job for over the 15 years with the same team. The team is constantly competitive year in and year out. You haven't had a losing season. Did they have the losing? I forget now. But
if they did, it was the only one he had.
And it was like an 8-9, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think that was it.
So just that kind of consistency. You're always putting out. And the best part about Mike Tomlin, he will always give the media a great one-liner. Sometimes it's complete nonsense, but it's absolutely hilarious, and he knows what he's doing, because you don't want to say something stupid to the media. He just, when you're funny, they focus on the funny things you say. Look at Mike McDaniel in Miami. The media ate him up, and he just played into it. Now he seems like the dumbest guy on the planet, but he's not when you talk to him. But if you just watched his clips at the podium, you would be like, who the heck is this guy, stoned?
Right. Well, I remember they talked to Mike Tomlin after the game, the first game that Kenny Pickett played. And they said to him, were you concerned about Kenny Pickett? He goes, no. He goes, I wasn't concerned. He goes, you do realize that Pitt, where he went to school, we share the same practice facility. He goes, I saw Kenny Pickett play more than some of the quarterbacks that we actually have on our roster. So, he said, I had no problem with him. He goes, I knew what he could do. So, he's the one thing about Tomlin, as you say, he's funny, but he's also honest.
He is
And
honest.
and that does make it difficult for some reporters to get on him because if they had a bad day, he'll tell you we had a bad day.
Yeah.
And it's not sugarcoating anything. And the players respect him for it because it's not like he throws them under the bus. It's a team effort. We screwed up. Okay, he doesn't blame one guy or the other. He just says we screwed up, or sometimes he says, he screwed up. I've seen him do that. I've seen him say, he goes, somebody will say, what about that clock management at the end of the first half? He goes, that was on me. He goes, I can't believe how stupid I was. But then again, we came out in the second half and played better.
Yeah, I remember there was even a time at the beginning of the season last year where they had like Kenny Pickett listed as the third string on the depth chart or something. And he was asked about it, like all concerned. And he literally, instead of trying to cover it up or something because it was a mistake, he literally goes, guys, the cut and paste component is the cut and paste component. All right. Somebody just copied it over and forgot to actually, input the change. They were just like, we're good. Copy, paste, copy, paste.
Oh, man. So, yeah, I mean, you get that. And, are there some coaches in soccer that you look at and go, they're brutally honest, and that's probably why they're successful?
I mean, you could say Jose Mourinho is quite honest. He's not afraid to tell the media, it's like he just ripped apart the Italian Federation for giving Juventus another 10-point deduction with 2 matches to go. He basically was like, I could have used that information 6 matches ago. It would have changed the way I approach things. Like, what the hell is going on here? And not only does it not help Juventus, it doesn't help anybody in the league who needed to know what place they need to be in. So, and I mean, like I said, say what you want about Mourinho. He doesn't win matches, but he doesn't lose matches, and he's very decorated. So, he's a guy who knows what he's doing.
You gotta hope that that things like that happen, right? So, well. We need to get you out of here. We'll run through the scoreboard real quick. And go ahead and correct me if I'm wrong. We're at the bottom of the 6th now. Tigers 3-1 over the Rangers. White Sox are getting clobbered by the Angels 6-1 there in the 3rd. Bottom of the 3rd, Rays are down 2-0 to the Cubbies. And they're warming up in Camden Yards for the Orioles and Guardians. Same thing is going on down in Oakland where the Athletics and the Braves will get underway shortly. Same thing across the bay where the Giants are hosting the Pirates and the Nationals and the Dodgers at 4:10. That game, of course, at Chavez Ravine where you can get your Dodger dogs. So there you go. If you want a Dodger dog, go to Chavez Ravine, you'll get them. So there you go. So that's what we got today. We're going to have some fun tomorrow. We'll have soccer. We'll have French Open tennis. Probably have some baseball. Probably have some golf because it's the Thursday. So there's first round of some tournament we'll get to, and we'll go over what happened the night before in the MLS. So plenty of stuff to talk about. Remember, Amadeus, where can people find you?
BigAl.com and PickAdvisor.com.
There you go. And follow him on his, AM Plus Money. That's AM_plus money on Twitter. Okay. So do that and you will get smart fast when it comes to understanding. Okay. All right, gang. We'll see you and be well. We'll see you tomorrow.